Welcome to another episode of Women Winning at Work with Barkha Herman. And today I have a wonderful founder, Danielle Boris, with me to talk about her experience. Danielle, so tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. I am the founder of a company called Sandbox. And what we do is we leverage intrinsic motivation and purpose to identify who is disengaged within a company and help uniquely re-inspire each team member.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. I have all kinds of questions about it. But before we go there, and I'm a comic book nerd, so I do this with every one of my guests. I would love to know, you're the superhero of your life, and what is your origin story? How did you end up here?
Yeah, I was very lucky to be raised by amazing parents who always instilled in me that I could do anything I wanted to do. And we had books, women can do anything, girls can do insert whatever activity it was, the whole series. And it wasn't necessarily that it was verbalized to me, you should go on to have a great career.
Right.
It was just instilled in me. I saw both of my parents, very entrepreneurial people, working hard in their lives. In fact, my grandparents are also entrepreneurs. And so I just internalized that. And there was never any discussion of you're a woman, so you're treated differently. And actually, I have a very female-dominated extended family as well. So in my immediate family, it's my parents, my mother, father, and I have a sister. My mom is the oldest of four, three girls, and then I have an uncle, and my cousins are all women as well. So everyone in my family, there lots of female energy, everyone working hard to accomplish their goals. There was never any piece that made me think, oh, I'm a woman, so I shouldn't be doing something. I was always going to achieve, and I'm very grateful for that.
So I'll make a comment here because this is something that is interesting to me because I was actually born and raised in India, and in Indian, sort of mythology and history and culture, the principle of strength is feminine.
I love that.
So to me, it was a surprise that other people don't see, like, that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I'd love to hear, like, okay, so startup is difficult. So, how did you come to the idea? Did you graduate? Did you have a career, or did you just go, nope, startup? How did this happen?
Yeah, I graduated college and I started working for one of the best companies to work for. I was very grateful. I was at BuzzFeed at the time.
Nice.
And I landed what I thought was my dream job. I was doing ad effectiveness research. So it was the beginning of native advertising, which today we all accept. Of course, native advertising is very effective. But when I had graduated college, it was just starting out. And so I was doing all of the research to understand if native advertising was an effective form of advertising.
Right.
And my first week of work, I was walking to a meeting, and I don't know if anyone listening or even if you remember this feeling of, yes, it's week one. I'm going to have this great meeting. It's going to be like it. Everything felt so new and exciting. And one of my colleagues, who's fantastic, said to me, she was only 5 years older, and she said to me, oh, I remember being excited my first week also.
Wow.
You'll get over that. And she didn't mean anything negative by it. To her, she was just like, oh, it's, it was almost like a nice innocence that I was carrying. And so I remember in that moment, though, feeling, I don't want to ever get over it. I never want to this feeling of excitement about work, especially because I grew up, seeing people love what they do. And so I didn't know it at the time, but that had really, sparked something in me. And as I continued my career, I kept making sure that I had that spark inside me. So as soon as I felt myself losing it, I said, no, I want to get it back. I want to get back. I never let myself get to a place of work is just work and it's terrible. Oh, well. And I realized how hard it was to actually keep that spark alive. I ended up working at another company after BuzzFeed. Again, an amazing place to work with amazing managers who I'm still in touch with today. It had nothing to do with how great the people are. People were fantastic. I worked for amazing companies, and I'm so lucky to be able to say that and grateful. It was that the system wasn't designed to help people keep that spark alive. And I realized that during my MBA. So actually doing the first reading for my first day of class, I learned that companies motivate talent through extrinsic rewards. So companies say to their employees, right, you need to do a good job so that you get a promotion, so that you get a bonus. If you stay working here, we'll have office happy hours, we'll have free lunch, what have you, all of these extrinsic motivators. But people are motivated intrinsically. I shouldn't say we're not solely motivated intrinsically, but intrinsic motivation is stronger. It's the motivation that comes from inside us that says, I want to do this. And there is no way for companies to tap into that intrinsic motivation in their teams. So I started building Sandbox as that solution. We need to uncover what intrinsically motivates every single person in the company, and then be able to systematically tap into it by aligning them with the right tasks, jobs, projects, initiatives that fuel their sense of purpose within the organization.
Oh my goodness, what a beautiful story. That's fantastic. I would love to ask you next, and you kind of touched on this about your childhood. As a woman, did you face challenges in workplace, or even, when you're a startup? What kind of challenges did you face as being a woman, as the face of the company?
Yeah, the first time I was acutely aware that I was a female founder and a female solo founder was actually during a mock VC pitch. My company is bootstrapped, but I was part of an accelerator where everyone, practiced their pitch on VCs who were not actually giving us any money. So there was nothing on the table. All they were supposed to do was give feedback. It was during the pandemic that I was practicing this, and so it was virtual. And I was in a room, and I was the only female founder pitching alone in the room. And as one by one, everyone did their pitch, and they all got this great feedback on the content of their pitch and how to make their pitch better and their business model. I did my pitch, and suddenly all of my feedback was about me. And it was truly the first time where I said, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And I didn't know what I possibly could have done differently, because it wasn't about me at the end of the day, right? It was a bias that I was in the room. But that was really the first time, and it was gutting. I mean, everyone talks about it. We, especially women in tech, women founders, we all talk about the biases that are there, but I had never experienced it firsthand until that moment. From there, I tried to take what I could from the feedback. Okay, did they say anything that adjusted the pitch? And at the end of the day, I realized that everyone will give you their 2 cents on what you said. It will land slightly differently with every person. And if you listen to every person's little bit of feedback, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So I continuously work, because it's not easy, to say, okay, someone just gave me feedback, whether it was biased feedback or not, someone gave me feedback. How does that sit in my gut? Is it a hard pill to swallow because it's true? Is it just not sitting right with me because I really believe that this is the right way to do it, because no one knows the research better than me. No one knows my business better than me. No one knows my customer better than me. I'm living it every day. And so that's the biggest piece of advice I honestly would have is listen to yourself and your gut, but still, keep your ears open, but filter it through your gut before you make a decision.
What wise words for somebody who is so young and just starting out. And I don't mean that pejoratively, absolutely not. So it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so, not to leave people with the negative, because the purpose of this podcast is really to get more women interested in tech. And so, what is the good part of being a woman in tech?
There's this saying that I love is they can't stop you if they don't see you coming.
I love it.
So being underestimated is definitely, you can use it to your advantage. I also, though, think that the sisterhood we've created is incredibly valuable. I am very big on lifting other women up, which is why I'm so excited to be on your podcast today. So leaning into that sisterhood and saying, how can we really help each other? How can we join hands and lift each other up? There's actually a graphic I love of women, physically lifting each other up, and it goes in a loop. So that is so powerful, and the power we have together, right? It's one thing to be a solo female founder. It's another thing to be a solo female founder who has made connections with other female founders, who will always share out your posts and who will keep an ear out for anyone who might, want your tech or might benefit from your tech or might be a good team member for you, and you do the same. And I want to say, more than just the business applications, right, of supporting each other in business, the emotional support is really valuable as well, because being a founder is the loneliest job in the world. It's incredibly lonely. It's incredibly difficult. So leaning into that sisterhood, I found, has lifted me up and has made me feel connected rather than alone.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I just want to take a step back and just congratulate you, Danielle. Is that here's a woman who comes from a family where you're believed in, and then you go into the industry and you see a little bit of the sarcasm that we see in the world today. Like, you can call it malaise or whatever. And listen, the world is full of amazing goodness and some nastiness. But you recognizing that and creating a company around that, because that dialogue that you heard from your coworker, even though it was not meant to be a downer, inspired you to create something fascinating and beautiful. And then, overcoming the bias and the limited viewpoints of others. Wow, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed.
Oh, well, thank you so much. But I mean, honestly, part of my business is about everyone being unique. And so, as women, we have a unique point of view, but also, even though we share womanhood, every single person on this planet sees the world in a unique way. And no one else can take that perspective away from you. And so use your superpowers, right? We talk about comic books, what is your zone of genius? What is your superpower that sets you apart? No one else in the world has it. Because
and I want to say this, that you saw that lack in the industry, that is, and I believe it's because you're a woman and you're a particular woman that you saw that nobody else could have seen it and created a business around it. So wow,
Yeah, thank you. It's actually really interesting to me. I try to keep up with any new technology that comes up in my space. And while there's a lot of technologies that help people make profiles, help employees make profiles about themselves, none are actually tapping into the intrinsic motivation, and none are connecting the employee's profile to the actual day-to-day work. And that's what's really missing, is that connection. We talk about connection in terms of people, right? Oh, you want to have a relationship. But at the end of the day, any job I left was because I no longer felt connected to my work. And I was no longer learning and growing. So how can we systematically learn and grow? Because when we do that, when we treat everyone as the humans they are, the unique, amazing, wonderful, weird humans, then we can actually create thriving organizations, and we can create more inclusive companies as well. When we look at people for their unique strengths, we say, and with their unique learning opportunities, what does this person uniquely want to do with their career? Oh, let's give them these opportunities. We can actually start to solve burnout as well, because the research shows that burnout doesn't stem from overwork. It stems from overwork that doesn't align with your sense of purpose. Now, where does your purpose come from? It comes from what's uniquely you, from what you're uniquely driven to do, your intrinsic motivation, right? That is very closely with your sense of purpose. So we actually can create development plans for every single employee systematically. Everyone is uniquely and systematically developing towards their goals just by nature of working. I mean, that is just so cool. And yes, I do think, I started to see it because I'm a woman, but I'm also a very outspoken woman. And so, and whether you're male, female, or you don't identify, you still are not necessarily outspoken, right? We have introverts, we have extroverts. When I was working, I would voice, I want to do this. And that's, there's a bias in that as well, in terms of generally who speaks up, right? So even by speaking up, it still wasn't possible all the time. So how can we make it possible?
No, beautifully said. You are on the same page as me. This is what I do. I recently wrote an article about having that growth mindset and having that internal motivation. Absolutely amazing. So let's move to another question that I usually ask my guests. If you had to give advice to your 15-year-old self, or your 18-year-old self, or your 20-year-old self, what would you have to say to them?
Follow your interests and everything will work out. And it's actually something I noticed after listening to different podcasts and different interviews with successful people, not just women, anyone who is successful. And when you listen to their founding stories, they say, I didn't know why, but it was sort of interesting to me. And so I explored it a little bit. I said, really, it was just interesting. It didn't align with the path that you were, quote, supposed to be on, right? There was nothing saying I should do this, but it seemed cool. So I wanted to look into it. And time after time, the people who are happiest and at the top of their profession actually were the ones who just followed what sparked them. And they didn't necessarily follow the path that someone else told them they should be on. And the research is actually really interesting here, because happiness research shows that happiness is the precursor to success, whereas in the US especially, we think that success, especially financial success, is the precursor to happiness. And that was really interesting to me too. So the more I follow what makes me happy, the more likely I am to be successful in all of the measures of success. What a powerful idea. So why don't I keep...
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. And I am a believer in this philosophy. So you and I must be listening to the same podcasts.
I love it. I'm so glad we need to read your article as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I am going to quote you on that and put your picture next to it, the quote, but on all my socials. But no, seriously, this is so important. I think that people are focusing on, and you've taken your whatever negatives and you've kind of made them into positives. You've taken a, hey, this is missing in the world, and you've done something about it. You've created a company and you're kind of transforming lives doing that. This is what I believe. Um, and so much, I hope so much success to you, but I think that this is true, that people are chasing the the success, whatever their definition of it, before fulfillment. And I think that fulfillment is the way to success, not the other way, right? So beautiful, beautiful, and happiness. I would love to, I'd love to hear, and before we go into that, I've also heard criticism of it, saying, well, you've got to eat. Listen, we live in the world's, arguably richest country. And yes, absolutely take care of, the food, the sleep, the illness first. Having done all that, then pursue happiness. Agreed. But I think it would be safe to say that a lot of us don't have to worry about, food in these days. Um, but I'd love to hear anything you wanna parting wisdom to my listeners, as well as, where can they find you? Where can they go to say, hey, company, bring this app to our organization. I really need to have this. This sounds right to me.
Yeah, well, off of what you just said, I actually talk about that in chapter 1 of my book, which is The Energy of Weirdos. And so what I say is, yes, it is not always possible to be 100% aligned with what inspires you and interests you and makes you happy. But if you are in a role, for example, I know people who they know where they want to go, but there's a lot of years of some grunt work, but they really want that, that role after it. Great. So what they end up doing is you realign your day-to-day work to say, how can I get the most out of it in terms of my sense of purpose, in terms of what intrinsically motivates me? So if I were to just shift it a little bit or reframe it, right, into, wow, I'm really grateful that I get to do this even little sliver of what my work every day. And in my book, there's a wonderful story of her, Kieran, who is a friend of mine, and how she did this at work. And now she's living her best life, and she has this wonderful analogy of a triangle. But it's not 100% possible. I agree with the criticism, but what is possible is reframing. And so, and the studies show that when people are able to reframe, when companies are able to help someone reframe, they actually can tap into that intrinsic motivation, that sense of purpose. In terms of parting words, believe in yourself, trust your instincts and your gut. They're there for a reason. And follow, like I said earlier, follow what really inspires you. It might seem crazy to other people. Why are you doing that? What? It makes no sense. I certainly had people say that to me. I had someone say, you think you've solved employee engagement and retention? No one else has solved it. Good luck. Right? And I said, no. Right? I think I've done it. But actually, by starting the business, I and leaning into my interests, I ended up writing a book. I was not expecting to write a book at this stage of my life. I ended up starting a podcast because I just kept pulling at that thread. This intrinsic motivation thing is really, really cool. What else can I do with it? And the opportunities sort of followed naturally. So remember to be true to yourself, to stay authentic, and don't be afraid to, lean into the people around you and lift each other up.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where can people find your company? How can I get the word out? This sounds like a noble cause to me.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. So the company is Sandbox. We are Sandbox together. And that is across social media, and our website is sandboxtogether.com. You can follow us again on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. You can go through me, Danielle Boris, and that's on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and my website, danielleboris.com. You can also read my new book, The Energy of Weirdos, Unlocking the Science Behind People First Leadership. And my podcast is called Unboxing Humans.
I love, love, love all of that. I love the title of your book. I am one of those weirdos. So
I am one of those weirdos too, the weirdos who love work and who love what we do.
Definitely buying a copy today. And thank you so much for being on the podcast, Danielle. I love the energy you bring and love the work that you're doing. I'm a big fan, and hopefully a lot of my listeners will become fans as well.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful speaking with you so much.